You ever notice how trouble seems to find you the minute you think life is finally calm? Well, let me tell you something. My wife and I thought we had it all figured out when we moved into this so-called peaceful neighborhood. Big houses lined up in rows, kids riding bikes, neatly cut grass, and neighbors waving as if it were straight out of a real estate magazine. The brochures called it the perfect community. But perfect doesn't always mean peaceful. Not when you've got someone like Karen running the homeowners association like it's her personal kingdom. Now I'll paint you the picture. Karen, this woman doesn't just chair the HOA, she is the HOA. Short haircut that she probably demands everyone compliments, sunglasses that she wears even when it's cloudy, and this habit of storming down the sidewalks with a clipboard like she's leading a military drill. Except Karen doesn't carry real authority. She just acts like she does. And her favorite hobby? Issuing fines for anything and everything. We're talking, leave your trash bin out an hour too long? Fine. Plant the wrong color flowers? Fine. Kids chalking on the sidewalk? Fine. And when she came for us, oh, she thought she had struck gold. It started with a letter in the mailbox. Violation notice, improper fence height. Now our fence wasn't improper. We had built it exactly according to county code. But Karen insisted it violated the HOA's aesthetic rules. And along with that notice came a fine. Not $50. Not even $100. No, Karen slapped us with a $750 fine for a fence that wasn't even 2 inches off what she claimed it should be. I remember holding that letter in my hands, laughing at first, then shaking my head. You've got to be kidding me. My wife Anna looked over my shoulder, sighed, and said, this woman's just asking for trouble. What Karen didn't know, what she couldn't have even imagined, was that my entire family serves the law. My wife Anna, a federal investigator. My brother, a state trooper. My dad, a retired sheriff. And me? I'm a detective with the city police department. We don't go around flashing that fact in people's faces. We just live our lives like anybody else. But when you try to play power games with people who actually understand law and authority, you're writing your own ending. I ignored the first notice. Figured it wasn't worth the energy. But Karen doesn't take silence lightly. 2 weeks later we got another letter. This one stamped in red, final warning before legal action. She claimed we now owed not just $750, but late fees that ballooned it up to $1,200. Anna rolled her eyes and said, she doesn't know who she's messing with. And still we didn't pay. What? Because we knew this wasn't legal. HOA rules don't override county law, and they sure as hell don't override the Constitution. But Karen had no idea. So, one Saturday morning, I'm washing the truck when I see Karen marching up the street like she's got the National Guard behind her. She's flanked by 2 HOA board members, her loyal sidekicks. She waves that clipboard in the air and yells across the yard, you've been fined. And if you don't pay, I'll have the law on you. Now I couldn't help myself. I leaned on the hood of my truck, looked her dead in the eye and said, Karen, you don't have the authority to call the law on me over a fence. She smirked, that kind of smug grin people wear when they think they've already won. Watch me, she said. 2 days later it happened. Flashing blue lights at the end of the driveway. A patrol car. My neighbors came out, whispering, peeking from behind their curtains like it was some neighborhood soap opera. And who steps out? Not one but 2 officers. Karen strutted up right behind them, sunglasses perched on her face, arms crossed, looking like she'd just summoned the cavalry. This is the homeowner, she barked, pointing at me like I was some kind of criminal. He refuses to comply with HOA regulations, and I demand you arrest him for violating community law. Now you can imagine the looks on those officers' faces. They glanced at each other like, is this woman serious? And then they looked back at me. And here's the kicker, one of the officers recognized me. His eyes went wide for a second and then he nodded slowly like everything just clicked. Detective? He asked, his voice low enough for only me to hear. I smiled and gave a small nod. Afternoon, gentlemen. What seems to be the problem? Karen gasped. Problem? The problem is him. He's breaking the law. Arrest him. The officer turned to her, raising an eyebrow. Ma'am, this is not a criminal matter. It's a civil dispute. We can't arrest him over a fence fine. But Karen wasn't done. She stomped her foot like a toddler throwing a tantrum. Do you know who I am? I run this neighborhood. If you don't take him in, I'll call your chief myself. That's when Anna stepped outside. Calm as ever, coffee mug in hand, not even bothered by the commotion. She looked at the officers, then at Karen and said, you really should stop before you embarrass yourself. Karen snapped, and who are you supposed to be? Anna smirked, sipped her coffee and replied, federal investigator. And last I checked, HOA rules don't override federal law. The silence that fell over that driveway could have been cut with a knife. Neighbors whispering louder now, officers trying to keep straight faces, and Karen. Well, her jaw dropped like she had just been told the world was flat. But did she back down? Of course not. Karen doesn't know the meaning of retreat. She pointed her finger at me, at Anna, even at the officers, and shouted, "This isn't over. You may think you're above the rules, but I'll find a way to make you pay." The officers shook their heads, muttered something about wasting their time, and walked back to their cruiser. But Karen? She stood there, red in the face, trembling with rage. And me? I knew right then, this was only the beginning. Because when someone like Karen sets her sights on you, she doesn't stop. She escalates. And I had the sinking feeling she was about to drag this whole neighborhood into her personal war. But what she didn't know, what she still didn't know, was that my family wasn't just any ordinary family. We were the law. Every single one of us. And if she wanted a battle, she was about to get one she'd never forget. You'd think after the stunt she pulled with the cops, Karen would have learned her lesson. You'd think she'd have gone home, cooled off, maybe even realized she'd stepped into the wrong backyard. But you don't know Karen. The thing about people like her is, once they feel embarrassed, once they feel like they've been made small in front of others, they don't let it go. No, they double down. They come back louder, nastier, and more desperate than before. And that's exactly what she did. The very next morning, I'm sipping coffee at the kitchen table when Anna drops a stack of envelopes in front of me. All stamped with the HOA logo. "Let me guess," I muttered, already knowing. "More fines," she said, rolling her eyes. I opened one, and sure enough, Karen had gone nuclear. Violation, unauthorized vehicle. She fined us $500 for parking my brother's patrol car in the driveway when he visited last night. Another one, violation, lawn non-compliance. She claimed our grass was a quarter-inch too tall. Another fine. Then one more, violation, public disturbance. She claimed Anna raising her voice at the officers counted as a disturbance to the community. Total amount demanded? $2,300. I leaned back, laughed bitterly, and said, "She's losing her mind." But Anna didn't laugh. She set her coffee down, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "This isn't just about money anymore. She's trying to provoke us into making a mistake. She's trying to drag us into court on her terms." And she was right. I could feel it too. Karen wasn't just flexing HOA muscle anymore. She wanted a full-blown war. That evening the family gathered at our place. My brother James, still in uniform after his shift. My dad, retired but sharp as ever, leaning on his cane like it was just another day at the sheriff's office. Even my cousin Sarah, a young patrol officer, dropped by. The living room was full of badges, full of law enforcement experience, full of people who had spent their lives dealing with troublemakers like Karen. James chuckled as he flipped through the stack of fines. "This woman's out of control. Half of this stuff wouldn't hold up in traffic court, let alone anywhere real." Dad shook his head slowly. "It's not about holding up in court. It's about harassment. She's banking on intimidation. She's hoping you'll break before she does." Anna nodded. "She doesn't know she picked the wrong family for that." And that's when Dad leaned forward, voice low and steady, the way he used to talk to suspects in interrogation. "Then we don't play her game. We play ours. We don't react. We don't lash out. We build the case. We let her hang herself with her own rope." Everyone agreed. And that's how the plan started. But while we were calmly strategizing, Karen was whipping the neighborhood into a frenzy. The next day a flyer appeared taped to every door. "Attention residents. The Johnson family refuses to follow HOA rules. Their behavior threatens the value and safety of our community. They believe they are above the law. If you support a clean, respectful neighborhood, stand with the HOA." Her signature was at the bottom in bold letters. Anna read it aloud and we both laughed. "Above the law," she said. If only she knew how ironic that sounds. But here's the thing, some neighbors actually bought into it. We noticed the sideways glances, the whispers when we walked the dog, the way certain families suddenly pulled their kids inside when we came around. Karen was poisoning the well, turning good people into pawns in her little crusade. And she wasn't done. 3 days later, another patrol car pulled up, not because of Karen this time, but because one of the neighbors called in a noise complaint. They said we were revving engines too late at night. Which was funny because we were both asleep by 10. The officers checked, found nothing, but it was obvious. Karen had her fingerprints all over this. When I stepped outside to talk to them, Karen was already standing on the sidewalk, arms crossed, grinning ear to ear like she'd scored some kind of victory. I walked right up to her, calm as ever, and said, "Karen, I know exactly what you're doing. And I promise you, it's not going to end the way you think." Her grin faltered for just a second, but she recovered quick. "You can't intimidate me. You might think your little badge makes you untouchable, but around here, I'm the authority." I shook my head slowly, let her words hang in the air, and then leaned in close so only she could hear. Authority isn't something you declare. It's something people recognize. And right now, nobody here respects you. They're just afraid of you. There's a difference. Her face turned crimson. She opened her mouth to shout, but I was already walking back inside. That night I found Anna at her desk, going through documents. "What's all that?" I asked. "Paper trail," she said without looking up. "Every fine, every false report, every flyer she's posted. We're building a file. If she wants to play legal games, we'll be ready." And she was meticulous. Dates, times, photos, even voice recordings when Karen came banging on our door. Piece by piece, Anna was constructing a case. Meanwhile, my brother James quietly talked to some of the neighbors. He wasn't in uniform, just a friendly face asking questions. And what he found out confirmed everything. Karen had been leaning on people for years. Threatening fines, bullying families, demanding power she didn't have. Some had even moved away just to escape her wrath. But now, with us standing firm, the spell was breaking. Neighbors were starting to whisper not just about us, but about her. Still, Karen wasn't blind. She saw her grip slipping. And when people like her feel power slipping through their fingers, they don't let go, they squeeze harder. The following weekend, I woke up to the sound of hammers. Looked out the window, and there it was. Karen and 2 of her board members had hired a crew to start tearing down our fence. I stormed outside, badge clipped to my belt, voice booming across the yard. "Step away from my property now." The workers froze. They weren't part of her little feud, they were just guys doing a job. But Karen marched up, waving her clipboard. "This fence is in violation. I'm authorized to remove it." I stepped closer, staring her down. "Authorized by who? The HOA? Because the county says otherwise. And last I checked, destruction of private property is a criminal offense." Her board members shifted uncomfortably. The workers backed off entirely. "But Karen?" She doubled down. "I'll call the police again." I pulled my badge and held it up. "Go ahead. And this time they won't be coming for me." For the first time I saw doubt in her eyes. Just a flicker. But it was there. She hissed through her teeth, "This isn't over." Then she stormed off, dragging her clipboard like it weighed 100 pounds. I watched her go, knowing full well she wasn't retreating. She was regrouping. And sure enough, that evening we got a certified letter in the mail. Karen had officially filed a civil complaint against us, demanding thousands in unpaid fines, plus legal fees, plus an order to force us to remove our fence. Anna read it, exhaled slowly, and said, "Well, she finally made her move. And I'll tell you this, Karen thought dragging us into court would be the end of us. She thought it would break us, embarrass us, maybe even bankrupt us. But what she didn't know was that walking into court against a family of law enforcement was like walking into a storm without an umbrella. And the storm was just about to break. You know that saying, give someone enough rope and they'll hang themselves? Well, that's exactly what Karen did the moment she dragged us into court. She thought she was marching us into her arena, a place where she could wave around her binder of fake authority and finally watch us squirm under pressure. What she didn't realize was that court wasn't her arena. It was ours. The day of the hearing, the courthouse lobby was buzzing. Neighbors showed up out of curiosity. Some came because Karen had riled them up with her flyers. Others came because they wanted to see if someone would finally stand up to her. Anna walked in beside me, calm as ever, her federal badge tucked neatly in her bag. My brother James was there too, crisp in his uniform, though he stayed quiet, blending into the background. Dad leaned on his cane, eyes sharp as ever, soaking it all in like he'd been waiting for this day. And then Karen arrived. Oh, she made an entrance. Clipboard clutched in one hand, a fat binder in the other, sunglasses perched on her face even though we were indoors. She strutted like she owned the place, chin high, lips curled in that smug little smile. Behind her were 2 board members, dragging rolling suitcases stuffed with papers, like they were preparing to try a murder case. She spotted us sitting calmly in the benches and sneered. "Hope you brought your checkbook." I didn't even flinch. Just gave a small nod like I knew something she didn't. Because I did. When the clerk called our case, we all rose and filed into the courtroom. The judge, an older man with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense, took his seat and asked Karen to present her complaint. And let me tell you, she wasted no time. She launched into a dramatic speech, waving her hands, flipping through her binder, pointing at us like we were hardened criminals. Your Honor, these people have violated community standards again and again. They've refused to pay their fines, disrespected authority, and endangered the harmony of our neighborhood. The HOA is seeking $8,500 in unpaid fees, plus an injunction forcing them to remove their illegal fence. She slammed the binder down on the table with a flourish, like she'd just delivered the closing argument of the century. The judge raised an eyebrow. Do you have evidence of these violations? Karen gestured to her board members, who scrambled to open the suitcases. They pulled out stacks of papers, photographs of our fence, flyers, copies of fines. Karen spread them out proudly, like a magician revealing her deck of cards. The judge skimmed a few pages, frowning. These appear to be internal HOA documents. Do you have any county or state records confirming these violations? Karen blinked, caught off guard. Well, no, but the HOA rules are binding law within the community. These fines are legally enforceable. And that's when Anna stood. Calm, steady, every move measured. Your Honor, may I respond? The judge nodded. Anna pulled out her own neatly organized folder, thin compared to Karen's mountain of paper, but sharp and precise. First, Your Honor, the fence in question complies fully with county regulations. I have the county permit here, signed and approved. Second, the alleged vehicle violation was a marked patrol car belonging to my brother, a state trooper, visiting our home on personal time. That is not an unauthorized vehicle. Third, the so-called disturbance complaint was made by the HOA president herself, without corroboration. We have audio recordings and witness statements showing it was entirely fabricated. She handed each piece of evidence to the clerk, who passed it to the judge. The judge flipped through them, his frown deepening at Karen's side of the table. And lastly, Anna continued, her voice sharp as a blade, we have documentation of repeated harassment. False fines, baseless accusations, and targeted intimidation tactics against not just our family but multiple neighbors. I've included sworn statements from several residents detailing similar treatment. This is not enforcement of rules. This is abuse of authority. Karen's face went pale, then flushed red. She jumped to her feet, slamming her hand on the table. That's a lie. They're twisting everything. I am the authority here. The judge banged his gavel, silencing her. Sit down, Miss Thompson. You are not the authority in this courtroom. The entire gallery erupted in whispers. Some neighbors smirked, others exchanged knowing looks. Even the bailiff cracked the smallest of smiles. But it wasn't over. Not yet. The judge leaned forward, fixing Karen with a hard stare. Miss Thompson, HOA rules cannot override county law. They cannot override state law. And they most certainly cannot override the Constitution. What I see here is not a case of unpaid fines. What I see is a pattern of harassment and abuse of power. Karen's jaw dropped. She opened her mouth to protest, but the judge wasn't done. Frankly, I am considering sanctions against you and your board for wasting this court's time. The board members shrank in their seats, avoiding her glare. Then the judge turned to us. As for the Johnson family, the fence stays. No fines are owed. Case dismissed. The gavel came down with a sharp crack that echoed through the room. Karen looked like someone had pulled the ground out from under her. She stood there frozen, binders slipping from her hands, papers spilling across the floor. Neighbors were whispering louder now, some even clapping quietly. But the real blow came when the judge added, furthermore, I'm ordering a review of the HOA's practices. If these allegations of harassment prove true, this board could face legal consequences. Karen's face twisted, eyes darting around the room, searching for someone, anyone, to back her up. But her board members kept their heads down, refusing to meet her gaze. That was the moment she realized she was alone. After court, we walked out into the sunlight, heads high. Neighbors approached us one by one, thanking us, shaking our hands, whispering things like, finally, someone put her in her place. The spell had been broken. Karen stormed past, sunglasses hiding her eyes, muttering under her breath. But the power was gone. The clipboard, the binder, the fines, none of it meant anything anymore. In the weeks that followed, the HOA board collapsed. Members resigned left and right, refusing to be tied to her anymore. The county investigation uncovered all kinds of shady practices, misused funds, falsified fines, intimidation tactics. Karen was stripped of her role, and last I heard, she sold her house and moved away, leaving behind nothing but bitter memories. As for the neighborhood, it changed. People started smiling again. Kids played outside without fear of someone writing them up for disturbing the peace. The fence stayed exactly where it was, standing tall like a monument to the day the community finally stood up to its bully. And me? I'll never forget the look on her face in that courtroom, the moment the gavel fell, the moment the illusion of her power shattered. Because the truth is, Karen thought she could use the law as a weapon. But she forgot one thing. The law isn't a toy. It isn't a clipboard. It isn't something you bend to your will with threats and fines. The law is real. And in our family, the law isn't just what we follow. It's who we are. So when Karen tried to turn it against us, she didn't just lose. She lost everything. And the best part? We didn't have to raise our voices or break a sweat or stoop to her level. We just stood our ground, calmly, firmly, together. Because at the end of the day, when your whole family wears the badge, no HOA bully in the world stands a chance. And that's how it all went down. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay tuned for more.